Welcome to this month's To Catch a Fraudster series. No, I'm joking. As I was mentioning, Jordan is just a phenomenal asset on the fight against cybercrime. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A chat, the Q&A panel. I'm actually loading that right now, so I'll have that up on my screen and I'll be monitoring that. We have really unique access to somebody that's living and breathing the front line of business email compromise and wire fraud on a daily basis. So without further ado, let me just share my screen, kind of go over how we're thinking about the session today. Jordan, can you see my screen? Okay. All right, perfect. We'll hand off a little bit back and forth here. Again, please submit your questions to Q&A. We will have a survey at the end that informs how we're doing as far as content and value for exchange of the time that you're spending today. Please fill that out at the end. But here's what we're going to go over. We're going to learn a little bit about what e-crimes investigators actually do. I'm excited, and I've got to know Jordan more over the few weeks leading up to this conversation. We're going to provide examples of what happens when an email is compromised. And then we're going to have a discussion, which could primarily be led by all of you, on how do we think about this going forward? Like, what does this really mean for our businesses, our teams? What does it mean for our referral partners, our clients, and ultimately the customers that we're hired to protect, the buyers, sellers, borrowers, developers, those in the real estate sector primarily, that we're all servicing on a day-to-day basis. So, all right, who is Jordan? Jordan's an interesting cat. So Jordan, what you don't know is I made a call to DC this morning to do a little social stalking on friends of yours. And Jordan was described as one of the former Secret Service, one of the most trusted and just most well-respected investigators in the United States. So Jordan, that's your reputation in DC right now. So if it comes back that I socially stalked you this morning, I absolutely did. Jordan works for Yahoo, and she is a senior e-crimes investigator. I didn't know this. This is kind of scary. She's a federally certified polygraph examiner. So I don't know if you're examining me right now, Jordan. It's all true.
Not a chair you want to sit in, Tom.
I was gonna say you're like here's the bright lights. Let's have a conversation, bud. But also the examinations, and I've heard about this of even being invited into some of the federal agencies. I mean, that is a very, very intense process, and Jordan has participated in those as well. So, Jordan, welcome. If there's anything you want to backfill on your role and what you do, we're going to get to it more in a minute, but I just can't thank you enough I know you're incredibly busy, the time that you're spending with us today.
Super excited to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak with everybody here.
Awesome. All right, so I guess what I'd like to start with, Jordan, is what do you do all day? I mean, what is your role? And then we'll see where that leads into some of the examples that we've talked about on business email compromise and romance scams and elderly abuse scams. But what is your role kind of at Yahoo? What's a day in the life look like?
Yeah, so as Tom mentioned, I'm on what's called our e-crimes investigations team. I've been at Yahoo for just over 6 years after 10 years in the government investigating fraud and cybercrime. I pretty much investigate fraud and cybercrime at Yahoo all day long, as well as some other things like child exploitation that we won't get into. But Yahoo is a massive platform. We over a billion with a B, as in BEC, a billion users across the globe. We host mail for obviously Yahoo, AOL, but probably 100 other domains that you guys are probably familiar with. Rogers, all the bells, so ATT, SBC, just a whole bunch of different domains we host mail for. So there's a ton of email traffic that crosses our platform, and any traffic that is, let me caveat this, we are not scanning anybody's emails. So that's that's not what we're doing in terms of fraud. But if it comes to our attention that an email that somebody on our platform is abusing our platform, is sending out, fraudulent emails, is trying to defraud somebody, is using our platform basically to harm others, my team gets involved. And if it's anything of a criminal nature, we investigate it, and we try to determine what the activity is and what our options are in terms of taking action. There's 5 other investigators on my team. Half of us are kind of former law enforcement, half have kind of come up in the tech industry with more of a tech background. But we're looking at abusive accounts that we're looking at them on mass scales. Are they registered out of countries where we know abusive activities are happening? Right? Are 5,000 accounts registered on the same day from the same IP address? One of them sent an abusive email, then we look at the other 5,000 that were registered from that abusive IP to see if they're doing the same thing, and we try to basically take action on all those accounts. So we work lockstep with another team that actually is a team of analysts who is doing this work and is really going through and taking action on abusive accounts. And then my team is really doing the investigative piece, right? If there is something that we can get our hands on and we can say, hey, here's a bad actor, they're doing this bad thing, and we can actually try to piece together what is happening. Hey, we have 10 victims on our platform, or they may not even be on our platform. It may be the bad actors on our platform, and he's using our platform to target victims elsewhere. Any of those instances, we get involved and try to investigate, because obviously we want the activity to stop. We want to stop the accounts from being used on our platform. We want to stop users on our platform from being victimized. So we do that through a number of mechanisms, which I can jump into. Tom, can I?
Yeah, why don't you share?
Okay.
Why don't you share an update? I mean, and to summarize, I mean, you're protecting the integrity of the platforms, right, that you're managing, but you're also creating. Claudia, could you enable her share a second? But you're also enabling others to have more trust in the platform, right? How much of your data, I'm just curious, is proactive versus reactive? Like the signal to investigate, you mentioned 5,000 domains and 5,000 accounts and one IP. That seems to be maybe a trigger that could be automated, but how much inbound says, hey, I think I need to report something because I'm getting weird emails, or somebody's saying they're not receiving my emails, or something's off on my account?
I would say that unfortunately, people don't report things as often as they should. I don't know if it's a fear, it's an uncertainty that what they're seeing is actually what they're seeing, that they're not seeing it at all, and they're unaware, right, that their accounts have been compromised. So unfortunately, we don't get a lot of reports from people who have been victimized. In the cases that we have, which I will go over a few of them, those have led to incredibly productive cases for my team, because we actually have victim statements saying, hey, I lost $350,000 in this transaction where my account was hijacked and the bad actor was able to get into my email, read what was going on, and take advantage of that. Those are great cases for us and great information to have. But more often than not, we're either getting abuse reports from outside vendors who kind of monitor this stuff, who see it, say, hey, it might be a bank saying, hey, this Yahoo account was used, in this BEC, attack. It might be a security company. It's also our abuse team that does hunting essentially on a daily basis, looking for signatures of bad activity so that we can proactively try to stop that on our platform.
Got it. Let's see if screen share works now. I know you got some.
All right. Yeah, so we kind of have these 3Ds: disruption, deterrence, and direct action. So disruption is essentially just identifying active accounts that are abusive on our platform and deactivating them. And then whack-a-mole, as I put up, everybody's favorite game at carnivals and fairs. It is literally what we used to do before we automated things. So when I first got to Yahoo, it was, hey, someone reported a Yahoo account being used in a BEC scam or a romance scam. I'd look it up, and then I would manually look to see how many other accounts I could link it to via its recovery phone number, right? Hey, they've got a Nigerian phone number. how many other accounts on our platform use that Nigerian phone number, right? Oh, I found 10. Okay, well, they also have an alternate email address. How do I find, the other accounts that are linked to that alternate email address? Now, a lot of this stuff is automated, but it is whack-a-mole because, right, anybody can sign up for an email account, right? They don't have to pay for it. And if we deactivate one account today, they just literally, we hit that one and they pop up over here with a new one tomorrow. So it is just a constant, hey, we are deactivating. We are trying to get rid of as many accounts as we can so that they can stop doing the bad thing. We do know that they will create new ones. It might be on our platform, it might be on a different service provider's platform. But if we can stop, if we can hurt their infrastructure, right, by causing them pain, by slowing down their ability to do their work, at least disrupts their work. It may not stop it, but it disrupts it at least for some period of time. It may disrupt, right, a monetary transaction, right? They've gotten in somebody's account and all the mail is being forwarded to this bad Yahoo account that we're looking at, and we deactivate that one tomorrow, right? Well, now they can't use that to intercept, right, the wire transaction and make a gain. So we're constantly doing this, and then direct action. So our last piece is kind of where my team really comes in, which is we refer cases. We write investigative reports. Could be a 3-page report, could be a 35-page report detailing how these bad actors are doing this bad thing, and we refer it to law enforcement, usually most often in BEC, usually the Secret Service or the FBI, so that they could take direct action, hopefully, right? Our intent is, hey, we've identified these folks, we know there are victims, we know they're doing this bad thing, please go in and physically stop them from doing that. Because if we just deactivate their account, we know they're coming back tomorrow and they're gonna just keep on keeping on. Yeah. So this is what I just talked about, but in terms of deterrence and whack-a-mole, we are nuking accounts at scale, right? One account often leads to 5,000 other accounts, maybe 50, maybe 100,000 other accounts. We are getting rid of accounts at scale, and then we're also remediating accounts. So when we find a bad account, and oh, sorry, my 1-year-old just walked into the room. I work from home, everybody. When we find accounts and we know, right, that they're bad and they have maybe compromised one of our user accounts, or they are, right, they're targeting other accounts. If we find accounts on our platform that have been victimized in terms of account compromise, we remediate those accounts. And by remediate, I mean we try to force a password reset, right? We know that the bad actor has gained unauthorized access to your account. And so we are basically pushing to you, hey, the next time you log in, you have to change your password because we don't want that bad actor to continue accessing your account. So we're doing that. And then again, as I mentioned, direct action. And we refer cases that we know, again, a lot of us have former law enforcement background, cases that we know are of value to law enforcement and actually can be worked. That's a lot of what we do. And this, I'll just say, this is a current stat I just pulled from our internal site today. Whoa. But from January through September 1 of this year, we have deactivated almost 2.8 million accounts on our platform for specifically scam and BEC activity. That does not at all take into account like account takeover, which is in the multiple millions. This is just this type of specific scam. It doesn't take into account probably 10 other types of scams that we track on our platform, like mass registration, account takeover, other types of things. And then the trapped accounts one is, those are accounts that we're pushing out that, hey, you need to change your password because we know your account has been compromised and is basically primed to be targeted for a scam.
So Jordan, when I look at these two graphs, I see a spike in the spring and I see a fairly significant spike midsummer around the 4th of July. Is there a rhythm to this, or is that just simply random data for the year?
I don't honestly know. I wish I could speak more to that, but I would have to like really dig into those accounts. It could be that like a specific campaign was launched around those times. A specific actor found credentials, say, for, a number of Yahoo accounts in that July time frame, and maybe 200,000 plus accounts were taken over, ATO'd, account takeover, and so we identified that then, and we pushed out that remediation. Hey, change your password. But that's what the data says, but I don't know the specific reasoning. I'm guessing it's because some bad actor got the data they needed and the credentials they needed to access accounts at that time. But I don't know if there's anything more behind it.
Well, but it does, let's say that's true, and there probably is a lot of truth to that. It shows how quickly they can scale. I mean, that bottom chart relative to July through even mid-August suggests that somebody put the pedal down on something, and then your reaction to that, right? So I see graphs. I'm like, what are the peaks and valleys, and what does that say? What was interesting from our perspective on our fraud recovery services team is with the banking crisis that started kind of mid Q1 of this year, and I think we're going to see another blip of that with commercial loan defaults and renewals coming up. I was just reading an article. We have like $1 trillion worth of renewals that are coming up in the next like 24 months on the commercial side. Most of your malls are appraising at like 65% of the original appraised value from the note term that they're currently on. We had a ton of activity on our payoff protect and our payoff team that was trying to make sure that the large sums of money on the disbursement side were heading into the right account, because everybody was switching from small regional banks to the larger banks as a flight to maybe deposit quality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I had more insight into it. Again, I don't specifically work on the team that handles this. I work hand in hand with them, but I more run the investigative piece of BEC and scams on our side. And I was out a lot of the summer. So I've got 2 small kids and had a lot of time off this summer. So I can't speak directly to that, but we do see this. I mean, if I look back historically over the last few years of this type of data, we do see this like major peaks and valleys, and it literally might be right one group, right? They got access to a really productive set of credentials. They executed a phishing campaign where they actually obtained new credentials. They bought credentials right somewhere, and those credentials were good, right? Were valid. And so then they launch a campaign to try to take over accounts and start their scams. And then so we go from kind of a sleepy period of time into, hey, this is active because they have credentials that are actually functioning. So that again, it may be that they found credentials. It may be that, right, they had a great phishing campaign that allowed them to collect more active, valid credentials. Don't know. Just me guessing.
Well, on behalf of all the industry, I mean, the fact that you're looking at 7 million accounts year to date, I mean, that's all crap that's hitting our inboxes and threats to, I would argue, every type of transaction, not just real estate.
Yeah, and I'm working on more BEC stuff on our platform. We know that people use our platform kind of to conduct this type of fraud. Not that they don't use others, they certainly do. But again, as I mentioned, like there are groups called the Yahoo Boys that literally target our platform to do this. So we're really trying to take a proactive stance of finding these accounts that have been targeted for to be victimized, and remediating them, and really trying to make sure that users' accounts are safer. So if you see hey, reset your password, it's not a suggestion. It's you need to reset your password, right? A bad guy is reading your emails as we speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, you jump in if you want me to kind of stray away from what I got here.
No, I want to talk about now BEC, because Jordan just shared kind of stats and a flyover of what her lens looks like day to day. Now we're going to kind of double click into business email compromise. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, it's essentially a strategy where through phishing, and Jordan will get into this, phishing is an email that says, hey, you want a $5 gift card at Starbucks, or you got, click on this link to download the agenda for the next PTA board meeting, or here's a click here, here's a survey for a property or an updated prelim CD or whatever. It can be personal or professional. These guys are very, very good. That email then harvests credentials and they get email access. So the business email compromise is this idea that, especially in real estate, guys, with an average life cycle on a real estate purchase transaction, the residential side of like 42 to 45 days, that is a long transaction cycle for a scammer to either try to work the front end on the buyer incoming funds or the back end on our disbursement seller nets, our mortgage payoffs, the commissions, municipality payments, whatever it happens to be. So an email came in, and this is a good framing for this. You know, how are scammers infiltrating these email accounts? Are they specifically targeting dormant accounts, and what email accounts tend to be more appealing maybe than others for them to spend time in?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part. Could you? Okay.
What email accounts tend to be more appealing? And is that, you know, Yahoo? Is it one of the bells? Is it right?
So the bells are a big target of real estate BEC specifically. You know, a lot of those accounts are older. It's a lot of folks have had those accounts for a long time, and they're conducting their business. Their day-to-day, like their actual companies use their, you know, Jordan at att.net account to actually do my business transactions. You know, it's part of our terms of service. We say these are your personal accounts, not to be used for conducting business, but obviously people conduct business over their emails. So that is what it is. It is not dormant accounts. We actually purge dormant accounts after a certain amount of time. If you have not been active in your account, we ping you and say, hey, right, if there's no activity in your account, we're going to actually deactivate it, right? Because we don't want to just host inactive accounts for decades. So it's accounts, right, that have existed for a long time. Sometimes it's you know, there are phishing scams for, you know, entities unrelated to Yahoo. It could be like a real estate specific company where, you know, entity or thing where a bad actor obtains credentials for users, right, that are active in some sort of real estate business, and they're getting, hey, here's a whole bunch of users that logged into this platform, and they either steal the credentials, they phish the credentials, they get access to some sort of system that has, right, people's emails, and then they target those folks. These folks, they literally, we used to have, you guys are probably aware, something called Yahoo Messenger, which was a chat platform on, you know, that we hosted. We used to be able to read these bad actors' chats with each other, and they would literally talk about, hey, targeting this account, right? CEO of this company or CFO of this company, or this guy is in the real estate business, you know, send him an email. And they literally would just talk about it. On our side, you know, when we start investigating the big cases and some of the ones that I'll talk about here, we can see, right, they're targeting folks in a certain profession or in a certain industry. Generally speaking, there are certainly cases where bad actors just obtain basically a large tranche of credentials, right, from a breach from some source, and they may not know, right, who those individuals are or what they're into, and they just basically try to get into the accounts, and then they scrape through to see, hey, what sort of financial incentive can I find in this account, right? Do they just have a bank account? Do they have cryptocurrency? Are they in the real estate industry? Anything of a financial nature, you know, that they can be motivated by. So there are those general account takeovers where it's just, hey, we're going to just spray it out there and hope we get into anybody's account, and anybody's account we can get into, we're going to see what damage we can do. And then there's, you know, much more targeted and focused ones where they're targeting folks in a specific industry, et cetera.
Can you advance one slide?
Yep.
We're still on the stats slide.
Yep. There we go. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered some of this, but in terms of BEC that is targeting users on our platform, so, you know, tom@yahoo.com. If you have tom@yahoo.com, you are an early adopter, Tom. But yeah, so as we talk about the entry points, into this are often phishing or password reuse. And phishing, again, Tom just talked about that, but password reuse, I can't tell you the number of people that use the same password for all their various accounts, their email, their bank, their kids little league, their everything, right? Because it's just easy to track one password or an iteration of one password. And this is why we suggest internally in our company, we're required to use a password manager. You cannot have an easy Jordan 123 password. Password strength matters. Changing your password frequency, having strong passwords is super important, because there are so many people out there that use the same password over and over again. And if a bad actor got access to your social media account via your email and password, and you use the same one at your email provider, they then can hop into your email account. So there's a number of different entry points. So phishing, password reuse, credential stuffing, a whole bunch of ways that the bad actors can basically access your account without authorization. But oftentimes, again, what we see here is the account compromise. So a bad actor compromising your account, compromising the account of one party who is involved in a relationship that involves a wire transfer. And again, once they're in your account, they can do a lot of things, and they are trained to sit and wait, to read the activity, to know what's happening, to have the dates of what's happening next, and to interject themselves on those dates to basically steal all the money that they can. So the entry point is what we just talked about. They use a lot of different methods, and sort of the main cases I'll talk about, the most common things we found were that they use mail forwarding rules. So basically they get into your account, and then they set up a mail forwarding rule that says, hey, forward all mail to my bad actor account, which might be on the Yahoo platform, it might be somewhere else, right? It says forward all mail to the bad actor's account. So the bad actor can literally read your mail, right? Read everything that is coming into your mail, so that they can be educated on what transactions you are involved in. Oftentimes that mail forwarding rule is accompanied with a filter or a rule that says, hey, delete everything that's been forwarded, so that you don't know that the mail has been forwarded, right? There's not a copy that says, hey, this mail has been forwarded to bad actor number one. So they know how to do this. Like I said, they're professionals. They do this every single day. And something we'll talk about at the end is, hey, check your mail settings, right? Know what's happening in your email account. And there are settings that will very readily tell you if you have mail forwarding set up. If you didn't set it up, it shouldn't be there. I will say on our end, we now limit mail forwarding. You can't have, if one bad actor is in your email account and they're forwarding mail to jordan@gmail.com, we will scan our system and see how many accounts are forwarding emails to jordan@gmail.com. And if it's 400 accounts, right, are trying to forward mail to jordan@gmail.com, that's a big indicator to us that there's a scam, there's a bad actor involved, right? If you're having your mail forwarded legitimately, it might be, we'd see one iteration or two iterations of mail being forwarded to jordan@gmail.com, but not 400. So we do have systems set up where we are trying to prevent these things, because we have seen cases like the ones I'm going to talk about where bad actors have hundreds of accounts, forwarding mail. Adding attacker recovery methods. So they go in, they remove your recovery phone number. So your phone number is on there, so that if you get locked out of your Yahoo account, there's a recovery method, right? We can contact you via a phone number or via an alternate email address, a different email address. Oftentimes I'll go into an account and I'll see, oh, on this date, right, this account was logged in from a Nigerian IP or a South African IP address. And on that same date, this 415 phone number, which is a San Francisco based phone number, was removed from the account, and it's been on the account for 5 years. And a South African phone number was added to the account from a South African IP on the same day, right? So they'll see that they're removing your recovery methods and they're adding theirs, so that if, right, you go and you say, hey, I'm locked out of my account, the notification of how to reset that goes right to the bad actor, right? So they're still being able to access your account, and they're aware. Those are some of sort of the methods that they're using to be able to obtain access to your accounts. read what's going on in your accounts, educate themselves, and insert themselves into your business, essentially.
Sure.
Go ahead.
How have you seen social engineering advance? I know you're going to go through some case studies, and maybe this question should be held for after that. And if that's the case, let me know.
Yeah, I think maybe hold off on that for a minute. And if I don't cover it, we can come back to it. But you know, I want to make it clear, right? These folks are in your email. They're in, they're in people's emails. They find their way, and they are trying to understand relationships between their victims and the people that they are interacting with. They are learning, right? Hey, who does the person they're targeting, their intended victim, who do they normally talk to? How are they talking to this person? What's the cadence, right? I will say one of the last BEC type cases I worked when I was still in the Secret Service. I was based in San Francisco, and actually the town that I lived in, there we had a BEC case. It was an $800,000 BEC case where a woman who lived in the same town I did, I ended up having to go to her house and interview her. She was about to engage in a real estate transaction to buy some property. I believe it was in the Philippines. I could have that wrong. This is probably 10 years ago, but she was intending to buy property in the Philippines. She was also a board member at a small local bank. And what she didn't know, and we didn't know originally, is that the bad actors had again gotten into her account compromise. I don't remember how they got in, but they did. They were reading all of her emails back and forth. So they knew she was a board member at this bank. They knew when she had meetings. They knew when she had in-person meetings at the bank. They knew everything about sort of her day-to-day and what the expectations were. And they basically used that to basically steal $800,000 from her in a real estate transaction. She had emails, she thought, with the folks that she was doing this real estate transaction with, and she said, I'd like to make this happen. This is my time frame. The bad actors jumped in and said, hey, I'd like to make this happen a lot faster. Let's make this happen, tomorrow. And the folks at the bank who she was working with were like, oh, this is a board member telling me they want to make this real estate transaction. She wants this to happen tomorrow. She's not waiting. And you could see the emails back and forth, and the person at the bank who was just, an employee of the bank says, hey, a board member is telling me they want this money to move. And the person at the bank said, hey, well, we need you to come in and sign some paperwork in order to move this money. And again, the bad actor interjected themselves and said, well, I'm coming in for my board meeting on Tuesday, which was it was like a Friday. It was like, hey, next week on Tuesday, I'll be there for the board meeting. I will sign the documents that day, but I want you to transfer the money today. So sure enough, the bank transferred her $800,000. And this was because the bad guy knew, right? They knew this woman's position. They knew that she was scheduled for a meeting in person the next week, and they used that, right? So they interjected themselves. They understood the trust relationship. And this woman's $800,000 did not go where it was supposed to. It went to I think when we froze it, it was in Hong Kong. The funds were in Hong Kong. So again, these folks are literally doing their homework on you once they're in your account, and they wait for the opportunity. And if it takes, to Tom's point, 40 days, they'll wait 40 days, right? If they know, right, there's a $500,000 transaction on the line, they'll wait 40 days to interject and send their bogus wiring instructions, right? That's, hey, if they can make $500,000 in 40 days, right? That's good living for them. So, and another thing we often saw was impersonations, right? They're impersonating, somebody, they're interjecting themselves, they're impersonating somebody, and we could talk about that later. But that's just kind of some overall tactics that we see here at Yahoo that I also saw back in my days working for the government. There's some questions. I don't know if you want me to go through here.
Yeah, if you want to, or else do you have?
Yep.
Is there some case studies that you were going to go over, Jordan?
Yep. So between 2014 and 2018, I'll try to whiz through this. We basically we had 3 big real estate BEC cases. And in the first one, here you can see the victim lost $350,000 to folks who had hijacked their accounts and had created an account impersonating the victim's title company. This individual actually did reach out. I believe, I don't know if they sued Yahoo, but they definitely they reached out and filed a complaint. They were in Illinois. They were trying to purchase a home. The fraudulent title company had sent wiring instructions for an account at JP Morgan Chase instead of the home seller's account, and this individual lost $350,000. So this is how we became aware of this. This person actually spoke up and said, right, I'm a victim. So we had one account. We knew of one account. I think in this case, we found an additional 50 accounts across the United States. Most of the accounts were clustered in Illinois and Florida in this case, but there was at least 50 other accounts. And all of the victims in this case were title companies, escrow companies, realtors, or real estate attorneys. Every single one of them. Basically, we said, hey, this is happening to this one individual. We used kind of our internal investigations. We identified these other 50 accounts, and we just did some open source investigation to see, like, who are these people, right? And it would say, Jordan Realtor at yahoo.com. Or, okay, or we look them up and we'd find them on their LinkedIn profile, or just, their website that said, right, I'm a realtor and here's my email address. It's jordan at yahoo.com, right? And so we could easily identify who these people were and clearly identify why they had been targeted. In this case, victim accounts were compromised. The account's mail settings had been altered to forward a copy of all of their incoming email. And then mimic accounts had been created to send fraudulent wiring instructions, right, pretending to be their title company. So this was the first case. This, I know you can't probably see it in detail. This is an investigative chart that the investigator on this case created to send to law enforcement on this case to identify what we saw. So the purple accounts, and I know you can't see the detail, which is probably good. The purple accounts are the accounts we identified as Yahoo victims, people who had been targeted in this scheme or scam. The yellow accounts are the subject's like personal operational accounts, right? The accounts where you can see them, right, receiving money, where you can see, right, their day-to-day activities. Did they get a bill from their phone company? Things like that. The blue accounts are fraudulent or mimic accounts that they created on our platform to scam the purple accounts that you see here. So, I mean, there's a lot of blue accounts on here, right? And they could create, 40, 100, 300 scam accounts, fraud mimic accounts in a day. They could do that in an hour. This is, again, kind of the work we do behind the scenes to try to piece together who's talking to who, what happened, and try to create a better picture when we do a referral to law enforcement of who the players are, what accounts they're operating, who they're targeting, and what accounts they're using on our platform to do the targeting.
It's like digital CSI, Jordan. I mean, it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and that's a very small one. That was a very small one.
Well, I was just looking at, there was a 2 to 3x ratio between the blue and the purple. I mean, just do the color analysis.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I was speaking with federal law enforcement in North Carolina about a year ago, and the FBI investigative special agent said that they were working a case where they found a Gmail account, and that Gmail account was auto forwarding to over a dozen other subsequent accounts, like literally just auto forward to ultimately the destination account, which was overseas. And it never occurred to me that they would use like those synthetic, I'd call it a synthetic account at that point, to just try to mask where it is the actual endpoint, would be in the communication. And that's probably what you're seeing here, is that you have these like layers of impersonation and these layers of social engineering, because there's a lot more blue than there is purple on this board. Yep.
Yeah. And, they have to, insert themselves into the game and get people right to engage with them so that they can, obtain their funds, their gain, their reward. And, they do that by creating these these mimic accounts where they try to impersonate your company. You know, they try to say, yeah, this is who I am, and this is, you know, what you need to do. And it's very easy for them to do. You know, they have scripts, right? They're taught how to do this. They're taught how to use language, you know, to make it sound more realistic. You know, they are taught, hey, what is normally said in these types of transactions? You know, obviously some of them are more skilled than others, but absolutely, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And as I mentioned, this one was a relatively small chart in terms of the number of accounts that we were looking at. The second one was referred in May of 2016. We had received another complaint. A Yahoo account holder in New Jersey was the victim of an account hijacking bank theft scheme. He said in his complaint, I am an attorney who handles real estate transactions. Yesterday, I was asked to send over wiring instructions to Citibank. 3 hours after sending the wiring instructions, Citibank received an email from, I blurted it out, which was his email with the number 1 added at the end. So this would be a mimic account, one of those blue accounts, informing them to disregard my earlier email so that new wiring instructions could be provided. The amount which was requested to be wired to the owners of the mimic account was $217,000. So we started investigating this case, right, based on one complaint, one Yahoo account. We looked at the bad actor account, this mimic account, and we found a ring of individuals residing primarily in South Africa who appeared responsible for the hijacking of this attorney's account. And we found approximately 190 other accounts associated with realtors, title, and escrow companies and law firms, all who had been targeted in the same scheme. The tactics used in this was, again, account compromise, followed by mail settings being altered to forward a copy of all incoming mail to a specific Gmail account. And again, we found a lot of iterations of that Gmail account, right, a naming scheme, and we could see that the mail forwarding settings had been set up to forward mail to other addresses that were very similar. My forwardings ... at gmail.com.
It's almost like a backtrace, right? So you're seeing where is it being forwarded? You're looking at the endpoint. You're looking at common denominators of that endpoint, and then you can work it back. And that's how you uncovered almost 200 different accounts that were being forwarded to some schema similar to what you had found.
Yep. And to that point, again, out of these cases came something that my team does, which is we investigate, we see where kind of people are taking advantage of our systems, and then we try to do product improvement. We work with teams to say, this should not be allowed. You can't have 187 accounts forwarding mail to, in this case, it wasn't the exact same mail forward, but similar, right, iterations of mail. It's, hey, now I think it's capped at 5 or less. But at this point in time, you could have 50, 100 accounts forwarding mail to the same one. So we started actually doing scans of our system to say, hey, what are the biggest mail forwarding accounts where the most number of Yahoo accounts are forwarding mail to those accounts, to see if we could identify additional scams. Love that right now. But here's the chart for this case. You can see the squares are getting smaller because we're trying to fit more and more of them on the page. But here you can see the purple. There's a lot of purple, and those are Yahoo victims. Again, the blue ones are the fraud mimic accounts, and the yellow ones are the actual subject accounts. The orange ones, we won't really pay attention. It's just a kind of a coding system for us. But yeah, this is, again, kind of how we put together sort of these groups, how we link them, if they're linked via a phone number, if they're linked via a recovery channel, kind of what we see. And then when we identify the bad actor, we put, kind of like a little picture of like their social media. I believe this guy over here was actually arrested, but he's since been released, etc. So go to that. And then the third one, this is actually my case. One of the first cases I worked, and when I came over to Yahoo, again, we had an abuse report describing an account hijacking scheme involving the compromise of Yahoo and Yahoo partner accounts. So Yahoo partner accounts are all those bells, the bells, SBC, ATT, etc. And the addition of mail forwarding addresses by the attackers. So again, same type of thing. The attackers gained unauthorized access to at least 190 plus Yahoo users in order to engage in BEC related fraud, targeting users, again, in this case, who work in the real estate and legal fields. Every individual I looked at who was targeted in this case, so 190 plus, were realtors, real estate lawyers, and title companies. So they were Jordan at sbcglobal.net. And that is on their, their real estate page, that is very, very readily identifiable. So again, all the victims' accounts were compromised and the account's mail settings had been altered to forward a copy of all incoming mail, right? This is a very familiar theme. As you can see, this is now years of this stuff happening. All cases are currently being worked by the U.S. Secret Service in South Africa. We have had great meetings with them. They work incredibly hard on this stuff. Unfortunately, they are flooded with this because there are a lot of folks who engage in this activity are either based in South Africa or who have moved there because it's a better environment to live in. You can spend your wealth, your riches, and live in sort of more high society in South Africa than you can in like Nigeria and other countries where these fraudsters used to be initiating these types of frauds. We've had, I think, 3 or 4 arrests out of these cases. So that's a win. And there's others who are sort of in the works right now. I'll stop there, I think. And this is my chart from my case, I think. Yep. So.
What I'd like to do, Jordan, if you can stop share, is I want to go some of the slides about how could we identify a compromised account, and then we'll address questions. We got about 6 minutes left. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating work that you do. So thank you.
Yeah.
So let's go through, and can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right. So maybe just tell me when to advance, but let's just walk through. So Jordan mentioned a couple things. Phishing leads to credential harvesting, leads to account access. What we're going to show here is how could you identify if your account has been accessed. Now, this is Yahoo. There's very similar construct in Outlook, in Gmail, and essentially every platform that you may have and that our referral partners and customers may have. And I think one of the things that I struggle with if I put my title agency owner hat on is that a lot of times when I hear about a fraud or we're in victim intelligence gathering because there's been a loss, it's the real estate advisor or it's the client that has been compromised, and then the title company is spoofed. At least that's for the incoming, right? For the outgoing, same compromise level, but then the mortgage lender is spoofed, or the seller is spoofed, or the listing agent spoofed, or the closing attorney spoofed, and then they're tricking the title company. So could you walk through this quickly, Jordan? We talked about auto forwarding, but I don't want to gloss over. It's auto forwarding, it's auto delete. There's filters that can be placed on terms like wire, transfer, closing, cash to closing, closing obligation funds. I mean, they're really efficient. And I'm wondering, do you know, because I heard an answer, but I haven't asked this to you, how long does it take once they have email access to have these settings in place?
I mean, it could take a minute.
A minute. That's what I heard. Under a minute, it's all just set. It's like set and forget, and then they just start.
They know they're doing this to 500 accounts in a day, right? Go into the settings, set up your auto forwarding rule, set up a rule that says to auto delete the fact that email has been forwarded, set up a rule that says filter for these types of messages so they can see them. There are other iterations of this, which is they're doing things like changing the reply to address, things like that. But it takes them literally a minute. They are very well versed in all the different email service providers, systems and settings, and they can hop right in and adjust things. So if you happen to have a Yahoo platform-based account, I would highly encourage you to follow kind of what Tom's doing. If you have any other mail provider, literally just do a quick search on my email settings and how to check them, how to verify them, how to know that you've been compromised. Go into your mail settings, see if there's a mail forwarding rule set up, see if there are any rules set up, right? Mail rules that say filter messages to this folder in my box, filter messages to this folder. anything that looks, like is something that you haven't created yourself is obviously fishy. On the Yahoo platform, you can also see all recent logins to your account, right? And if you log in from like me from my Comcast IP address in Northern California, I should not see anything outside of that, unless I'm traveling and I know I'm traveling, I know where I am, or I'm using my phone provider. But here is, you can do a security check on our page to see kind of what the health of your email account is. If anything that I could take out of this, it is to give you guys, it is enable MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, or on our platform, it's two-step verification, which is known as 2SV. So that if an attacker has your email and password, they got it from a phishing scam, they got it from the dark web and a breach set, anything, they have access to your username and password, that's called your credentials. If they have access to that and you don't have any other security set up on your email, they have you. They own you, essentially. You need to enable two-step verification or multi-factor authentication on all of any system that you have, any email that you have this. That says, hey, right, I logged in using my email and my password. Here is the second step that authenticates who I am. And that may be, right, sending a code to my phone. It might be sending a code to another Yahoo app that I authorize. It could be a security key. There are multiple iterations of MFA, but it is basically adding a second layer of security to authenticate who you are, so that just simple username and password, which again, the bad actors can access super easily, is not, they're not able to access your account with just username and password. So please enable this.
I'm not going to hold you to this, but what do you think, in your professional opinion, that how much would two-step or MFA prevent on an account takeover side? 9 out of 10? More?
Yeah, definitely 9 out of 10, probably more. There are instances where they might get around it, but I would say over 90% of account takeover would be mitigated, gone, if everybody enabled this.
All right, let's do a rapid. So amazing conversation, Jordan. Just what I'm taking from this, and every interaction we've had, I take a lot, is they have singular issues in their workflow, and that's account compromise, and then they monetize that effort through the diversion of funds transfers. Real estate clearly has been one of those where once they see, oh, I see a closing attorney uses Yahoo, they scrape data, they find other Yahoo addresses, and then they run these things at scale. The fact that there were real estate agents, closing attorneys, title companies involved in, call it 200 transfer buckets per investigation that you've done, suggests that they understand the role and the persona of each of us in the transaction. Here's a checklist. Everyone's going to get a sense of what, good behavior looks like versus bad behavior. Claudia, I would ask you in the Q&A to post up the 2 links from Yahoo. How do I identify, or how do I go through my own security check? Even if you don't use Yahoo, guys, that is the roadmap for all email security. Yahoo did a phenomenal job on that document, because it's everything from not just auto delete rules, but they can put in a filter, say for the next 5 days, any email that's coming from, whatever title company is going to get redirected. Like, it's not even going to hit this account. We've seen BEC loss, like wire fraud loss, where the fraudsters impersonated everyone in the transaction, were sitting as a master switch of all communication. And they had these block rules that no one could really talk to the other person. And then they'd interject a spoofed domain or a spoofed email address for that. I want to get real quick, Jordan, just do a time check here on questions. So thank you, Claudia. It's actually in the chat, guys. Recognize a hacked email and then secure email account. Please use that. Those are really good links. Is there a paid subscription with more protection on Yahoo? That's one question.
Yeah, there are paid subscriptions with more capabilities and with the ability to basically engage with someone to talk to about problems. I don't know that. I think you can have like additional mail. I think you actually can't even have mail forwards on your account unless you have a paid subscription now with Yahoo. But that's like moving forward. So obviously accounts previously had mail forwards uh, before we offer these paid subscriptions. It's not more protection. It's basically more features, if you will. The account, like how to recognize a hacked Yahoo Mail account, the Yahoo the like how to secure your account, and checking the health of your Yahoo account is free. You can go on there. You can look at the most recent logins to my account. You can look at everything that we kind of just discussed for free, and all that stuff is stuff that you need to go in and enable. Like, right, we can't say, hey, eliminate all mail forwarding for all users, because some people want their mail forwarded. We can't say, hey, let's change the mail filter rules so that none of this happens, because some people want that. So you do have to do it on an individual basis, yeah, so definitely use those resources. Go and check. It will take you maybe 5 minutes to check these things. And I think someone asked about changing your password.
Yeah, how often you talked about complex password manager, like one pass or last pass
or LastPass. I would encourage that 100%. Use one, and I would suggest changing your passwords every 2 to 3 months. But again, monitoring, right, your communications, your emails for, right, am I not receiving messages? Are my contacts not receiving my messages? Are people saying that I'm spamming them? Just for kind of like red flag behavior, things that are not what you would expect coming out of your email account. You can sign up for services like Have I Been Pwned, which will tell you if your email or any of your accounts have been seen in a breach set, meaning your credentials are out there for some bad actor to obtain. I get notified of that.
That's PAWND, and maybe Claudia, you can put that in the comment as well, because mine have. I mean, I bet you almost everybody's email address will be found on that list.
Yep. And that's a very quick, hey, I need to change my password. I think I'm an iPhone user. In the keychain thing, it'll tell you, right, if your passwords have been seen in other places. So that's also a good way to do it. I see we're at time.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jordan, I know we're 5 minutes over. I want to be respectful for everyone joining. Thank you so much. A wealth of not only information, but again, I think I speak for everyone that the work you're doing at scale is preventing so much from probably what we're seeing in additional BECs. We typically get involved when there's really an active engagement on the solicitation of a wire fraud, or on the back end where funds are lost and now we're in a recovery. It's interesting because I bet our worlds cross more often than we think when we're grabbing victim intelligence, and you're like, oh yeah, well, this email went over to this email, and all of a sudden federal law enforcement has a more enriched profile from an investigative standpoint, which only helps them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I'll just put this out there. If anybody ever has any questions, or I don't even know if you can send out my email, I am always happy to help people answer questions. If you've got a complaint, if you think your account was hacked, anything, I'm always happy to help chat with people, receive a phone call, an email, whatever. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. If anybody wants further information, has questions about their Yahoo accounts, thinks they've been compromised, any and all of the above.
If we did one thing this afternoon, Jordan, to help protect ourselves, what would that one thing be today?
Enable MFA.
On everything.
On everything. Yeah, not just your email. On everything. Enable MFA and use a password manager.
Social, Netflix, everything.
Every single thing. Yep.
Everything. Yep. Got it. Jordan, you're awesome. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for hanging out a little bit extra with us today. And we will certainly see you next month. Until then, stay safe. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.